You're listening to the Messengers of Hope Mission podcast with your host, Bob Gardner.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Glistening Glass. Glistening Glass is my company and is a residential window washing and gutter cleaning company. We service the northern Hillsborough and southwest Pasco County area. If you're interested in having your home windows or gutters cleaned, now is the time to call. 813-404-2300. That's Glistening Glass. Stuff that's happened in Messenger Hope that particular week. Well, this week I have the privilege of having Jackson Davis here. Now, if you don't know who Jackson Davis is, and you follow Messengers of Hope, you know about our school bus. Well, Jackson Davis is the young man that not only got the bus, built the bus, and donated it to us, but he did this for his Eagle Scout project, and he made Eagle Scout last year, and if I'm not mistaken, you were Eagle Scout of the Year.
Well, actually, it's the Eagle Scout Project of the Year. So out of all the Eagle Scout projects that were done, there was thousands and thousands nationwide. They all go into a big competition almost, where it tries to see which one was basically not the best, but the biggest, the most impactful. And from there, they have a committee that chooses it, and I was lucky enough to win the award.
I think I like what I said better. Eagle Scout of the Year, and I'm going to go with that. Jackson is the Eagle Scout of the Year. Now, I'm probably going to get Boy Scouts calling me out on that, and it's a joke, people, please. Eagle Scout Project of the Year, but Jackson Davis made his Eagle Scout via this project, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So to get the rank of Eagle, you're actually required to do a community service project. It can be anything from building a bench, building a bookshelf, just something that helps the community. In my opinion, it's one of the best things about Boy Scouts because it really helps the organization interact with the community and it betters the community.
We've had other scouts work with us before, and some of us have built benches and shelves with it. So it's funny that you mentioned that. So it's great to see that the Boy Scouts are doing a lot of stuff. Now, Jackson here is a graduate of Wendell Kren. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Wendell Kren Technical High School in Port Richey or Newport Richey? Newport Richey, and he is now a student at the University of Central Florida, where you're studying
mechanical engineering.
So once you hear about this project, you're going to understand a little bit of what's going on in Jackson's mind here. And so I'm just going to start out the questions here, Jackson. Where did you get the idea for this?
So the idea for the project really came from Messengers of Hope. My father was working with an organization called Leadership Pasco. And part of what that organization does is every year they try and get a project from a local community organization and they make it come true. And so one of the projects that was brought up to them was from Messengers of Hope, and it was a suggestion for something similar to the bus. Unfortunately, that organization didn't end up choosing to do it, but my dad thought it was a cool idea, and at the time I was looking for my Eagle Scout project, so he brought it back home to me, and that's how I really came into contact with Messengers of Hope.
Okay, so now let me share a little bit about my side of that. So Jackson's father, Dave, reached out to me about you guys meeting and talking about the project for it. And I got to admit, when you came, and I'm going to have you share that, when you came and shared that, I thought, I'm never going to see these people again. And why don't you tell a little bit about that first meeting, what you remember of it?
Okay, so for that first meeting was the first time I personally really interacted with Messengers of Hope. I read about them online, heard about some of the stuff my father had to say, but coming in and seeing the warehouse and seeing what they do here kind of made me really say, okay, this is the project I want to do. I know that this is going to be impactful to the community. I know Messengers of Hope is a great organization. And so for that first meeting, it was just really cool to be able to look around, talk to Bob, see what they do here, and really share with him the idea and help to make their organization better.
Yeah, I have to admit, when you met with us, I thought, I'm never going to see this. This is too grandiose. And, we get a lot of people say, hey, we want to do this, we want to do that. And usually we never see them again. And then on top of that, we had a little thing that you might remember called COVID that happened. So there was about a year that I didn't have contact with the Davises and Jackson here, and I thought, well, that just killed any chance of this. But at the end of COVID, I got another contact from Dave Davis and Jackson Davis. And do you remember that meeting?
A little bit. That meeting, I feel like I do remember you being a little surprised to see us again.
I tried to hide it.
And so that meeting was just kind of sharing how the progress on my end was going with just the planning of the bus, kind of deciding what we wanted to happen, and then talking to Bob and getting his input on what he wanted to be inside the bus. So I know that he really wanted to have a lot of refrigeration space. And so that was a really important design aspect that we tried to focus on based on the input that he gave.
Now, you may not remember this, but when we had that second meeting, you told me you had already raised about $3,000, and that's the first time I walked away from the meeting going, I think this kid is serious. What were you, like 13 or 14 at that time?
I think I was probably 16.
16.
Maybe 15. I don't know. It was a while ago, though.
Now, you started this when you were like 13 or 14, though, right?
I started my Boy Scouts journey when I was really, really young, like 5 or 6, and I began my Eagle Scout journey around, I think, 14 or 15.
Yeah, I know you were young, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the first vehicle you ever drove
was the
bought,
school bus.
Bought and drove was the school bus.
Yep.
So that shows something about your character. But okay, so you met with me, and then it was like another 6 months or so later that you reached out again, and you were ready to buy the bus. So tell me about that process.
Yeah, so for buying the bus, we bought the bus from the Pasco County School Board. It was just one of their spare buses they had. But to do that process, I had to give a speech in front of the entire school board themselves. So that was probably one of the most stressful moments for me of the entire project.
At 16 years old.
At 16, standing up there, giving a speech to all of these important board members, just talking about the bus. But they were really, really into it. They were super supportive, and they ended up working with me to choose a bus that worked well, that had a pretty good quality engine and all that stuff. And then we put it under the deed under Messengers of Hope and got that bus squared away.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a video of you talking to the board, and I believe it is on the Jackson Davis Eagle Scout Project page on Facebook.
Yeah, that's correct. Every single thing that I did for the project is right on that Facebook page, Jackson Davis Eagle. It's a whole documentation of the entire journey from the very first stuff all the way to serving people with the bus.
So check that page out if you haven't done it. You can find that on Facebook, and it's really cool seeing those photos. So you got the bus, and now I remember I went there with one of our volunteers, Steve, who actually had a CDL at the time, and he drove it from the school bus yard to where it was going to be worked on. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So the very first place we opted to store it was in the back parking lot of my high school. We're really good friends with the principal. He's a member of our Boy Scout unit, and he's super, super supportive of everything we do. So we parked the school bus back there, and the first couple days that we worked on it went off really well. We took the seats out when we were there. We began doing some of the window stuff when we were there. But after a month or two of storing it there, we came to check on it, and there was all sorts of graffiti and stuff inside. So school buses don't really have locks on the door. You can pretty much go into it even if it's parked. So and apparently some kids had decided to go in there, draw all sorts of stuff on it. And after that, we decided that we had to put a lock on it, and then the bus ended up being moved to become more accessible and also to prevent something like that from happening again.
So it was moved from, I believe it was Wendell Kren, it was where it was at, and then it was moved to a very interesting place, and I'm going to have Jackson, actually you got to give a shout out to your parents for this one. So where was it moved?
It was moved to my backyard. I know our HOA was not particularly happy about seeing a big old bus sitting there. But it was moved to the backyard, and we continued doing work on there for a couple more months. That well was in the backyard. We finished up swapping out some of the windows for aluminum, just to make sure that no food accidentally broke them, to make it look cleaner on the outside and all that. While it was there, we also installed the AC unit, which to me is probably one of the most unique parts of the bus and one of my favorite parts of doing. And so just sitting in the backyard, it was very, very cool thing to have back there.
I'm sure it was. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, he said sarcastically, but you did all this work by yourself, correct?
Not quite. I had around 45 different volunteers throughout the 2-year process helping me. In total, there was 400 logged volunteer hours racked up, and that's pretty much just the work days. Any planning that went to the side wasn't really logged. Anyone who just helped me with something small wasn't really logged. So I mean, my estimate is probably upwards of 600 hours in total spent between all the different volunteers on it.
So I do want to say that I purposely stayed hands off during this. I wanted to be surprised at the end. I did get to see the bus a couple times while you were working on it, but I really wanted it to be a surprise. I didn't want to really see it through the process. it made it real every time I saw it, but I wanted to be surprised. Now, one of the things that Jackson is being very humble about here is, yes, he had all these people helping him, but Jackson had to coordinate all of that. He had to get the other scouts involved, the other scout leaders, the other parents, his family involved. And his family, I think, did a lot of work on it, even not logged hours, but just the fact that it was sitting in their yard and having to deal with neighbors and HOA was enough. But then to have to put in all the extra time and I'm sure some of their own finances into this. Jackson did all the fundraising for this as well. So it's not something that this was done for him. Jackson had to do this. And then if I can add one more thing, I know because I got emails and pictures of all the design work that you had done. And that is where it kind of ties into your college education, right?
Yep. So pretty much the entire bus was designed in 3D modeling software or 2D modeling software before it ever became reality. I'm really familiar with three-dimensional CAD design, which is computer-aided design, and my father, he's an architect, and he's really familiar with the 2D side. And so, for example, the shelves, I completely CAD'd the entire shelving unit in the computer software before it ever got built, and I actually was able to print off instructions to give to other scouts so that way they can more easily assemble the shelves without me really having to say, oh, this goes here, this goes here. They can just look at the drawing, piece it together, and that helped a lot with the efficiency. And on the two-dimensional CAD side, we basically had a side view of the bus, which is where all of the shelving, all the coolers, that entire layout was already decided well before we even put it into the bus.
And let me tell you, it was amazing to see the stuff that I saw. And then after it was at your house, it was moved here.
Yep.
Where more work had to be done on it. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so once it got here is when we really started doing the electrical work. The electrical work is probably the most unique part of the bus. The bus is basically an RV. We have a giant battery on it. There's an inverter on it. Lights, coolers. It's entirely self-sufficient. Or not self-sufficient, but self-sustainable. And so the electrical work was largely done here. It's conduit running throughout the bus, all that stuff. And the other big thing we did here was we painted the bus. And one of my favorite stories from the entire project actually happened during that time. So for that day, we had probably 20 scouts. It was a really, really big volunteer day. But none of us had really painted a vehicle before. And so as we were taping off everything, there was this guy who just randomly was riding by on his bicycle. And he stopped and said, hey, I do this for a living. I can help you guys. And that one guy alone was able to do pretty much the entire work that 20 of us were doing, at the same amount of time. So he expertly taped off the bus, made it go by super fast, taught us a lot about how to do it properly. And so it was just really cool seeing how just a random person going by decided to spend his time helping and making the project a reality.
Now, I believe that you use spray paint, right? Just Kansas spray paint?
No.
No? Okay.
No,
I wasn't there for any of this, but I saw lots of cans of spray paint, like empty cans in the dumpster, so I assumed that's what it was from.
Mm-hmm. No, so we had I believe it's an air spray thing, where it's a whole machine that was set up. We poured the paint into buckets and then just did it just like they do at automotive dealerships or in the factories, where we just sprayed it on. Pretty much everyone who came close to that became a Smurf afterwards, looking very, very blue on their skin. But the bus really turned out well. At the end of that day, we did have a little bit of rain, so there's a couple splotches on the bus, but it's barely noticeable. So I was really happy with how it turned out. Yeah,
our parking lot was a little bit blue for a while. Thankfully, our landlord didn't say anything about it, or if he noticed it, he was very nice about it. Never really got upset about it. But it's over time washed away, so no harm, no foul there. But yeah, the bus looks amazing. It is blue, and I believe the original design was green.
Yeah.
But our colors here at Messenger Hope are blue and yellow. Now, on top of all of that stuff, you raise the money, but tell us a little bit how you raise the money, because there's something on the bus as well that that took extra work.
Yep. So there were two major fundraising sources. So we first had crowdfunding, which was just through GoFundMe, where it was family, friends, anyone who was just following us on Facebook who wanted to try and give a little to help support the project. So from that, we raised about $6,000, which is a lot, but that was about only a third of what we needed to build the bus. The rest of the money came from business sponsorships. So on the side of the bus, there's these magnetic sheets just front with the ads from different local businesses who all helped support the bus. So I had to go around talking to some of them. That was definitely a very interesting part, getting to talk to the community about what was going on.
And I believe there's about 10 different companies on there that sponsored the bus over the time of not only just the build of the bus, but also for the last year. You know, we kept the magnets on there, and we plan on keeping them on there for the remainder of this year until we start looking for new sponsors to help, maintain the bus and run the bus. But that was extra work that you put in. Is that included in the hours that you put on the bus? Or?
Nope. No, that was just unlogged hours, just going back to the estimate of a huge amount of stuff that I wasn't able to log.
All right, so let me ask you a personal question, and this will tie back into what I was just asking. Do you have a girlfriend?
Nope, not right
now.
now.
Okay, Jackson is free, and ladies, if you are looking for someone that is going to be a great provider and work really hard for you, Jackson is the guy. So, hey, this is your time. So, Jackson just got a little bit red.
Why, thank you, Bob.
But Jackson put all this work in, and he really deserved that Eagle Scout Project of the Year. And I can tell you, I was there at his presentation. What do they call that when you become the Eagle Scout?
It's the Eagle Scout Court of Honor.
Okay, the Court of Honor. I was there. I got to speak at that, and I, just for a couple minutes, and I got to share a little bit about what Jackson had done, and it was a privilege to be there. And I got to say, there's probably 200 people that showed up for Jackson's. I don't know what shows up at a normal one, at a normal Eagle Scout, but I have to imagine that this was a fairly big one, and rightfully so. There was like all sorts of politicians there, local leaders and community leaders, and Jackson really deserved what he got that day. And it didn't end there. So Jackson and his family volunteer with Messenger of Hope on a regular basis. When Jackson's not at school, he'll often volunteer. And when he's not there, not only do his parents volunteer, but his siblings volunteer, and grandparents too, I believe, and friends and family and other Boy Scouts and families of those Boy Scouts. So Jackson, if you think of this like throwing a rock into a pond, Jackson is that center, and it just radiates out from there all these different people that have gotten involved in this project. It wasn't something that just one person did. Jackson was a leader of that project, and he really deserves as much accolades as he can for this project. So it was a pleasure seeing all this stuff and still feeling the effects of what Jackson has done. So at this point, Jackson, I'm going to ask, is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Anything I didn't ask? Anything you could think of? Maybe a good story that was involved, kind of like the painter story, but something that just stands out.
I think just the part that stands out to me the most is just the amount of people who came and dedicated their time to volunteer with it. There was a bunch of people who came. We probably had 20 work days. There were several scouts who came to 10 plus of those. I mean, they dedicated a huge amount of time to set aside to help make someone else's project a reality. And so I'm really honored that they were able to work with me and I was able to work with them. And I think another cool thing about the project was that we were able to teach a lot of really young scouts how to do stuff. So there's a lot of people, especially young people like scouts, who have never touched power tools before. And so to many of them, working on the bus was the first time they ever did something like that. And so it was really cool going through the teaching process of saying, hey, here's how you do this, here's how you can assemble the shelf, here's how you can help contribute to the bus and also learn a new skill. And so I think that was a really cool thing that happened as a side effect of the bus.
No, that's amazing. It was so much more than just this project you did. It grew into so much more of a thing, especially the teaching moments. I like that. Is there anyone that you would like to thank? And I'm assuming Dad and Mom would be at the top of that list, but anyone, thank for the project and all the work that went into it.
No, definitely my mom and dad, because they did a huge amount of support. They supported me the entire time. They drove me around to all the different stuff. They helped me plan out. They helped me design it. They helped me go through the whole thing.
You heard Jackson say that they drove him around. That's because he wasn't old enough to drive yet, and he bought a school bus. So, so that is Dave and Jenny Davis.
Yes.
And then go on. Interrupted.
And then the other ones who I'd like to thank is all of the volunteers who helped. Without them, the project never could have happened. It takes a lot more than one or two people to build this. There's hundreds of hours put in that weren't from me that actually helped make the bus a reality. And then the last group I'd like to thank is just the sponsors. Anyone who donated money on the GoFundMe. Y'all's donation really made a huge difference in what we were able to do with the bus and what the final project could be. And then also on the business side, all the business sponsors, they were really helpful. They were really friendly. kind of helped take down the intimidation of talking to them a little bit as I tried to get the sponsorship. But it was just a really great project that I couldn't have done without the probably 100 people who helped me and supported me.
That's awesome, and I thank you for being here. And if I can say one last thing before we go, if you are a business owner out there and you're looking for the future generation, Jackson is in college right now, but in just a few short years, he's going to be looking for permanent work, and this is the kind of young man you want working there. And start courting this young man now and following his career, and maybe you'll have the opportunity to have him on your team, maybe even leading your team. So look for Jackson. Again, you can find him on the Facebook page, the Jackson Scout Eagle or Eagle Scout Project.
Davis Eagle. Just
Jackson Davis Eagle Project. And you can find him right there on Facebook, or you can find the link on Messenger Hope Mission page as well. And I want to thank you, Jackson, for coming on to the show today. And I'm sure there's going to be people really enjoying this. And all I can say is thank you for all that you've done, getting Messengers of Hope the bus and continuing to work with Messengers of Hope.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for everything you do for Messengers of Hope. This organization is really built because of you and your work, so thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Jackson. You have a great day and enjoy your college career. And ladies, he is free.
Thank you. And everyone listening, have a nice day, enjoy, and make sure to come out and volunteer.
God bless. I want to thank Jackson Davis once again for doing the interview with me. I had a great time talking to him and listening to the stories of the things from his perspective of the Mobil Food Pantry bus. So again, thank you, Jackson. Now, I want to take a few moments before we end the podcast to talk about some of the needs that Messengers of Hope Mission has. Now, this is a part of the show that I'm probably going to do quite often, if not making it a regular thing, is talking about some of the needs for Messengers of Hope. And I just wrote down a list today of some of those things. And in no particular order, we need chest freezers. And when I say chest freezers, I don't mean the upright ones. I actually mean the ones that the lid is on the top of the freezer, and we'd like to have them 14 cubic feet or more. We get a lot of frozen food, and we can fill our freezers very quickly before we have the chance to get it all out. So we do need those freezers. So it doesn't have to be new. It can be a used one. If you have one that you can donate, or you have the ability to get one for Messengers of Hope, please reach out to us on our Facebook page. Just DM us there, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. In keeping in mind with the chest freezers, one thing that we've had as a pipe dream for quite some time is a walk-in freezer. Not just a regular walk-in freezer, but one with a door big enough that we can actually roll a pallet jack and a pallet through the door. We need something like that because we get a lot of stuff at times, and it takes a long time to put it away. But if we're able to roll it into a freezer and work on it in there, the meat and other frozen food stays fresh and safer much longer than if we're, especially in the summertime, out in the heat. So if you have any way of getting us in touch with someone that would be able to help us with a walk-in freezer, or if you are like Jackson Davis and looking for an Eagle Scout project, this is the thing that would really be helpful to Messengers of Hope and to help you get your Eagle Scout project done. Now, out of the ones that I have listed, this one is probably the most important one in the near future, and that is we need a diesel bus mechanic. The difference between a regular mechanic and a diesel mechanic, from what I understand, is very different. It's like the difference between a MacBook and a regular computer that uses Windows. And then on top of that, you get a diesel bus, and it is much, much different than most other diesel vehicles. At least that is what I have been told. Now, we do have a mechanic that comes out and works with us once in a while, but he is quite pricey, and we can't afford to always get that done. We need oil change, and we need other fluids checked, and just basic mechanic stuff. And then there's some more advanced mechanic stuff that we need done. So if you are a diesel mechanic or know one that works on buses or has experience with buses, again, please reach out to us ASAP. And finally, I'm going to give one of our pipe dreams. This is a pipe dream that we've had ever since we've gotten our warehouse here in Odessa, is we would like a forklift. We have pallet racks that go up in the air as high as 12 foot, and it would be really, really nice to be able to have access to a forklift to put stuff on the higher shelves, and of course to remove stuff from the trucks and trailers that we have show up. So it would be great to have that instead of hand loading and hand unloading. So if that is something that you have the ability to help us with, whether you have one to donate or you know a business that is looking to donate one, please again reach out to us here on Facebook and through the podcast as well. So that is it. That's the needs that I have listed for this week, and I hope that you enjoyed the podcast. And again, thank you to Jackson Davis. And I also look forward to seeing what 2024 has in store for Messengers of Hope Mission. Okay, everyone, this is the point of the podcast where I get to make an appeal to you, the listener. Messengers of Hope is in need of volunteers to come help work at our warehouse. We have jobs as easy as sorting food and toiletries, items like light cleaning, all the way up to lifting and stacking of boxes. If you live in the greater Tampa Bay area and want to serve with Messengers of Hope, reach out today. Go to our Facebook page and message us directly. If you're not local or do not have the ability to volunteer at Messengers of Hope Warehouse, you can still make an impact. Messengers of Hope is in need of financial gifts. Donations are tax deductible as Messengers of Hope is a registered 501c3 nonprofit. You can go to our Facebook page and find an online donation portal or get the address and mail us a check. Any amount helps more than you may think. Just a bit of good news that the Messengers of Hope Mission podcast is now available not only on Spotify, but on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and Amazon Podcast. Please follow us and share us with your friends. That's going to do it for this week's Messengers of Hope Mission podcast. In the words of Mother Teresa, if you can't feed 100 people, feed just one. This is Bob Gardner reminding you to make a difference in our world today. See you next time right here on the Messengers of Hope Mission podcast.